The Sikha we will be learning now is the Siches Chelik Chafalev, the third Sikha for Parsha Shmois. Am ersten Mal in Torah, wo Yidden werden angerufen Bnei Lamokim, the first time in the Torah when the Yidden are called children to Hashem, but das in the Heintige Seder, which is in this week's Parsha, when the Eibusha sent Moshe Rabbeinu to tell Pari to let the Yidden out, he told him to say that Amartel Pari Keyamar Hashem B'ni B'cheire Yisrael, to start up the conversation by saying, my son, the B'cheir, the Yidden. The Yidden are called the son, the child of Hashem, but he's also called, the Yidden are called B'cheire. Steht in Posik, the Posik says, B'ni B'cheire Yisrael. The Yidden is called the son of Hashem, but they're called the B'cheire. What does the B'cheir mean? Now, usually we touch a B'cheir, means firstborn. But here, the B'cheire is Loshen Gdula. Rasha, and the Posik says that what does it mean, B'ni B'cheire Yisrael? It's Loshen, it's an expression of greatness. My great son, the big son, so to speak. Godel is big. My big son, the Eden, and tell Pare to let him out. So here we see that Torah is referring to the Eden as a big son, is a Mile. He's trying to describe the greatness of the Eden. The Rebbe says, in other places where the Chazal talk, they connect the Mile of Eden, when we say the Eden are children to Hashem, connected to being small. As Eden seine wie a ben Kotten, Eden are compared to a small child. And there's the posek that says, in Isaiah, Nar Yisrael ve'ehaveyu. The Eden are like a nar, like a lad, a young lad, and that's why I love him. And the Rebbe touches the posek, Nar Yisrael and far ve'ehaveyu, that's why I love him. So we see that if we want to describe the connection of Eden to the Eibusha and the love of the Eibusha to Eden, we describe Eden as a child. And we bring the roof a moshel from a melech, and the medrash brings even a moshel of a king. And the losh in the medrash is shehoy leibonim harbe. He had many children, many sons, many children. And he loved the small one more than everybody. And therefore, when the Eibusha wants to say how he loves the Eden, he said the Eden are like a small child, and the small child is the one you love. So davon verstehen. So we have to understand. Gewalt as the Abbot Ben Kotten is yeser mekulon, since the love to a small child is more than others. Heißt es doch, die Meile von der Ben is do mehr begilui bei Akotten wie bei Godel. It comes out that the Meile, the special quality of being your son, is more begilui, at least what is revealed, what we see, is by a small child than by a big child. Ein Favos reden dich wegen der Meile von Eden, as is einem Boni. So why, when the Torah talks about Eden, the Meile of Eden, the greatness of Eden, that they are children, and that's what the Eibusha was telling Moshe, tell Pare that Eden are my child. We're our children of Hashem. So he's trying to say the greatness of Eden. So why here is their posik madgish? This posik stresses b'ni b'cheiri Yisrael. The Yid Loshen Gdula, that the Yidden are my big son, greatness. When the mile of Yidden l'gabe Eibusha is when we are compared to a small child. Let's first understand, in order to answer the question, first understand what is the reason. Why does a person love a small child more than the others? We're talking about by the Gashmias, by a person down here. What's the explanation? So the Rebbe explains it. A ben Godel was an older child that already grew up with his intellect and his emotions, etc. So the love to him from the father is not always just because he is his child. The father could love him also because he's smart. He does everything rational with seichel. Because he has good emotions, good attributes, good midas. Or the ben is stark zoirin kibedav. Could love him because the child is very careful in giving proper respect to his father. But dos alts is an ave was im tzadatam. When he loves him for those reasons, it's ave that is because of a reason. Pikiyovas, he refers to it, ave atluye bedover. It depends on something. It's because of something, that's why he loves him. Ashenke the ave from a foter to a ben kotten, but the love of a father to a small child is blaze an ave atzmis. That's an essential love, meaning it's not dependent on anything. It's not dependent on his milas. It's just because he is my son. Just the essential connection. From the ben kotten, not in kanshleimus haseichel amidas. The small child doesn't have this completion of his intellect and of his midas. He doesn't have it. Und noch mehr, go even further. Eich das, what the kind folgt dem Taten is in Mechabet, even this, that the child listens to his father. and honors his father. He says, it's not because a certain specific quality that he has. No, das ist an ihnen atzmi in kind. That's something that from the child, so because he's a child and because he's my child, he has respect to me. But it doesn't show his greatness. Weil der Kind fühlt, das ist ein Tate. The child feels this is my father, so there's a feeling of connection, automatic connection between a father and a child. That's why he respects him. That's why he listens to him. So when the father loves the child that's small and it doesn't have any milas, is nit mitzad hatam. It's not for a specific reason. Milas b'nei, a certain quality that the son has. Nor is anava atzmis. It's an essential love. The bald as it is ein Kind, was avu ben seinen etzem echad, because he is his child, and the father and the son is one etzem, one essence, one thing. The Rebbe him lieb, so he loves him. By a ben godel, afa piwa say, ich is etzem echad bitoviv. By an adult son, a bigger son, even though he's also the same etzem, the same part of his father. Because there is also here a love that comes for a specific reason of the Maila of the son. It covers up on the essential love. When you see a person who loves a son that's big, you don't see in an open way, in a gilidik way, that he loves him because it's his son. He loves him because he's a great person. He's smart, whatever. But by a small child, where there is no love because of a reason. Because there is no reason. He's not smart, he's not anything, there's nothing that he did that he deserves it. He's the Ava Atzmes Begila. He's the fact that he loves him just because he's his son is revealed. When the father is that that's why the father loves the small one more than the rest. And it's because of this reason, because the love that he has to his son is a real love to a child. It is only because he's his child. So the idea that the father and the son are connected and they're one is more felt, more seen, begilui, when he is a small child. This is concerning the way it is down here between a father and a child. Just like it is by a father and a son down here. The same thing is above, so to speak, by the Eibishter. Zwischen dem Eibishter, which is Avinu Shebashamayim and Eden Bonim Lamokim. That's between the Eibishter, who is our father, and we are called the Father in heaven, and we are called children to the Eibishter. So the way it's down here, the same way it's above. So we know how it's above because we're down here. So from what you see down here in the father and child, so we could analyze that and take that to a higher step and understand that's the same thing in the Eibishter and Eden. But the truth is the opposite. The contrary. The Ava Atzmis von Eltern zu Kinder wird nicht tauschel von der Ava Atzmis von dem Eibishter zu Eden. We see it down here, so we understand the way it's by the Eibishter. In truth, it starts the other way. Because by the Eibishter, there is an Ava Atzmis that the Eibishter has to the Eden und der Fartaki, das Amoshel, and so therefore that makes it that down here it's the same way. In other words, down here is a ishtalshalis comes from the way it's above. We see it backwards. We see it down here, so we understand it's above. But in truth, because it's that way between the Eibishter and Eden, that's why it's down here by your father and the son down here. When they're far taki, and that's the reason why it's a real moshel. It's only a moshel. It's only a parable between down here as a parable to the Eibishter and Eden. Why is it a true moshel? Since it's a moshel in Torah, so it's a true moshel. Torah is emes. Because that's connected. The reason it's down here is because it's Lamaila. So obviously, from the way it's down here, we have a real embassy emotional look at the way it's Lamaila. So in between the Eibishter and Eden, we have the same way, the way we speak about the Ave of a father to a child, we could say the same thing in the way it's the Ave of the Eibishter to the Eden. As es einen dort zwei Fanim, Madreges in Avas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. There's two ways, two levels in the love of the Eibishter to Eden. When Eden dienen dem Eibishter, we Eden serve Hashem, and we said begilu zeir meidel gaba alumes, and we see their special quality compared to the other nations. Then Hashem loves Eden, but there's also a love for a reason. Because the Eden deserve the love. The Eden are behaving, the Eden are different. So you love them because of what they are. But Dugmas Ava from the Av Lebnei Agodel, just like the love of a father to his older son. He loves him also because he's smart, he's good, so he loves him for that reason. Und der Vater verbindet man gefindt man, als der Medrash verbindet den Posik Bnei B'chei Yisrael mit dem meisten Teben für Jeden. We take a find that this Posik Bnei B'chei Yisrael, which talks about the Eden as being great, being big, older, so the Medrash connects it to the fact that the Eden behave properly, do good deeds. Because the Medrash says that the word B'chei also means from the word Shebichru Maisim Tevim Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Har Sinai. That the Eden, I don't know how to touch the word bichru. It's not bochrum with a ches, which means he chose them. No, bichru means like it preceded their maisim tevim. I don't know if that's the right translation. Their maisim tevim, their good deeds preceded to the Eibishter by Har Sinai. When they came to Har Sinai, they had maisim tevim. So it's connected while b'cheri loshim tula v'aisav der ma'ila gedoy yifnit. It fits to what we said before, that when we say that we praise the Yidden and we say the Eibishter loves Yidden because they're great, that shows because if you're great, there's a milah that the Yidden have that we could see, and that's a love that the Eibusher has because of the milas that we have. So it said the Medrash that connects B'nai B'cheri, which is the Yidden being like a child that's older, to the Maisim Tevim, because we said the love from a father to a child that's older is because of his behavior, because of his qualities. Same thing when the Eibusher says B'nai B'cheri, it's a love because of what the Yidden do. As is over do the Ava Atzmis von Eibusher. So Yidden, there is the essential love from the Eibusher to Yidden, because it's eine chelik alakamim al mamish. The Yidden are part of Hashem, a real part of Hashem, a chelik min etzem, a chelik of the essence of Hashem, a part of the essence of Hashem. But she's bedugme ha'ava from the avle bnei hakoten. This is similar to the love that the father has to a small child. The father was the ben, is ein kind. Here it's because he's his child. Was die ave is abhängig von der Arbeiter von Yidden. This ave that Hashem has to us is nothing. The Ava Atzmis is nothing, not dependent on our Aveda, what we do. Here state the Medrash, like it says that in the Medrash. Kishem shebnei shalodem kishutine koten. Im yechte einov mesalik olov mitnei shukoten. If just like the son of a person, if his child is small, if he sins, the father will not push him away, take himself away, remove himself because he's a child. Kach Yisrael, afilu chaitim b'shgoga ma'ila lehem kishen kiyatin nekoten. Even if they sin, the Eibishter says, it's like a child that sinned, and I still love you. So he doesn't love him because of the qualities, he loves because you're a child. When die Ave steht the Gole beniten seinen bei Avidos and Biabekoten. This higher level of Ave, the Ave Atzmis, is by Yidden begilui when they behave like a ben koten. When is it begilui? When they behave like a cotton. And by a cotton, we said it's only because they have atzmis. What does that mean? When they behave like a cotton? Then when field, if you feel, if a person feels that he has certain special qualities, but the Verstand in the Lakus, you're a person that understands the greatness of Hashem, Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, you love Hashem, the fear of Hashem. Und der Gefühl is begilui by mention. This feeling is begilui. A person actually feels it openly. He feels his qualities.
Yeah.
What? So the love of the Eibush to him is also a love for a reason, because he's milim of the Rav Atzmis. So if you behave in a way that you feel your milas, so the Eibush in return does the same thing. He loves you because of your milas. If he loves because of your milas,
Go.
that's
I have a class
Rav
at 8.
Atzmis.
And I have paperwork to do. Yeah, no, it's fine. If not tomorrow afternoon, I could go.
Yisrael,
When was that?
I could hear you.
No, okay.
So it's an ave. So this feeling that you have covers up an ave, just like we said in the moshel, by a father and a child. Because he's older and he has milas, it covers up that you don't see that love is because of his son. He has other milas also. So here too, if you feel your milas, then even though there is always an av atzmis from David, if you're a child, like by an adult child, there's the av atzmis, but you don't see it begilui. Here also, if you feel your milas, the ava is in a form of your milas. So you don't see begilui the ava atzmis. The afkem me feels sich wie a cotton. Only when you feel like a cotton.
All you need is just potatoes?
As nit kuchen dik. Yisrael, I could hear you. When you feel yourself like a cotton, as nit kuchen dik of the grace milas of him verwogt is meklein bazich, that in spite that you have big milas, great qualities, nevertheless you are small by yourself. Just like you feel like a child that there is no milas. Besides the fact that he's a child of the father, begilu, there is no milas. So if you feel that way, that as much as you have the milas, it doesn't mean anything to you. you still feel yourself small. But is the aveda nitn satan vadas geschmack. So then when you serve Hashem, it's not because of your milas, with the feeling that you have your own milas, no mekabala sale. If you feel that these milas don't mean anything to you, then why are you really serving Hashem? Be'etzem. You're serving Hashem because He's Hashem and you have Kabbalah sale. You have upon yourself the yoke of Hashem. Punkt v'yakoten kipshute, just like a simple child. Begashmi as a child. One of the qualities of a child is, one of the tchunas, one of the attributes is, a child is naturally, not because of his milah, naturally a Kabbalah Seilnik, a person who has the yoke. Listens to what you tell him. He listens to his parents, even though he doesn't understand it in the seichel, why you should listen to them, he listens. But it's not because of his milas. It's because he's a cotton. That's his nature. So if a Yid behaves that way, that he has milas, but nevertheless, he doesn't look at the milas as some credit he gets, and he looks himself, feels that he's just like a cotton, and he serves Hashem with Kabbalah sale, that's between him and Hashem. The person, the Yid's connection to Hashem, so that makes the Eibusher have the same ava to you, the same love to you. If you connect yourself to Hashem, even though you have milas, but not because of your milas, you don't consider the milas, you just do it because you feel that you're an etzem of the Eibusher, you have a Kabbalah sale to the Eibusher has that love too. So we have two types of love of the Eibusher to Yidden. One love is that he loves you because of your milas, which is also an ava. But there's a deeper love, a love that he loves you because you are a child of you are part of the Eibusher, like a child is part of the father, and that's why you serve Hashem for that reason, and you hold yourself small. The Eibusher loves you also as if you were small, which means the ava atzmis, the essential love. We still need explanation. Is based on what we said till now, it comes out. When you serve Hashem and you remain in the level of katness, in the level of being small, not having these milas, bringt us to gilui ava atzmis. So then you have the revelation of the essential love because you don't have the milas. So you have the Kabbalah sale, and that brings out the ava atzmis, the essential love. Leidoch, but the other hand, the aveda von niden beteide mitzvahs in a nefen was bringt ruis the milas gluyas von niden beseichel midas. But the other milas that Yid has, when the Yid serves Hashem in the form that he has milas, he has seichel, he understands things, and he has proper midas, etc. Which makes automatically, so you serve at Eibusher with a reason. Because you have seichel, so there's a reason behind how you serve the Eibusher, which brings automatically that the Eibusher loves you also with a reason. He's got a helam of their ava atzmis. That covers up, comes out. So far, in other words, it's better not to have those milas. Those milas cover up. So it's a strange thing. The milas cover up, so it's better not to have the milas, it seems like. Don't have these milas. These milas cover up and you don't see the ava atzmis. Now, the truth is, we said before, that even if you have the milas, you could still work on yourself that not to take these milas as something of your credit and still remain as a cotton, even if you have the milas. So that's true. So the Rebbe says that it's true that we said before that if you serve Hashem feeling the bittel, feeling the katness, the humility, seine milas gluyas von Aiden nit meilen of der ava atzmis kanal. So these milas that you have, even though you have them, but if you still feel yourself as a cotton, it doesn't allow that to cover up on the ava atzmis. So what's the problem? What we said, we asked the shaila, it comes out that the milas you have are no good. I'm saying no, we didn't say it's no good. You could still have the milah of the ava atzmis begilui if you serve Hashem as much as you have the milas with katness, but it doesn't come because you're bottled, that's why you reach a higher madrege. As their bittel tutuf if they're in the ava atzmis. So far we didn't say if you have the bittel, it doesn't add to the ava atzmis. Says nor as nit kukendig of the milas gluyishally. It's only that in spite that you have these revealed milas, which should cover up normally on the ava atzmis. Ken the ava atzmis welche is done lechatchila bleiben begilui welche is done lechatchila bleiben begilui. So we're saying if you serve Hashem in a form of katness, the milas won't. It's possible that they will not cover up on the ava atzmis. Mitzad them was their bittul tutuf in a inyan ahelam for the milas agluyas, because the bittul what it does is it takes away that helm. It takes away the cover up that because you have milas, it covers up in the avatzmis. But if you serve Hashem with the milas, but you serve Hashem with katnas, you still feel small. It won't cover up, and it'll still be. But so far, it doesn't come out that doing the mile, having the milas is something that adds to it. Doesn't add to you. It just takes away the avatzmis. Elamai, we said it's possible not to take away if you feel good, so it doesn't take away the avatzmis. But that's all it is. But it doesn't mean it adds something. Von dem aber, was der Eibishter ist hat Matbia gewähnt, aber so wachsen mit Katnas und Gadlas, since Hashem made the nature that you grow from small to big. For the Tchune von Gadlas is little bit bittel of Katnas. The idea of growing is not bittel. It's not small. Nor the Gidel from the Menschen Meseichel Amidas. That's something that's growing in your side things. You're growing in your Seichel, you're growing in your Amidas. Is sicher, und sicher is nicht die Kavon that the Ava Atzmi soll salven werden. And for sure, the Eibishter doesn't want that the Ava Atzmi should be covered up. And we're saying, really, your Midas and Seichel do cover up. Elamai, there's a possibility that it should not allow it to cover up. But really, it shouldn't be that way. Is moving on the Avedas Hashem was kumt arus von der Tchune von Gadlus Gufe. It has to be that the Avedas Hashem, what comes as a result of Gadlus, bringt, wenn sie es kfirot, so Ayisof Bagdol Eichen dem Gilu Avatzmis, must bring that you add in your Avatzmis. Till now, we've been saying that Avatzmis is only when you're cotton. When you have the mileage, you don't have the Avatzmis. We said, okay, it usually covers up, but it's possible not to cover up. But from the way it seemed that the Eibishter made you grow, assuming that this is not a chesron, this could add. Before we said it only covers up with the Avatzmis, but if you feel cotton, it doesn't cover up. There has to be some way saying that the mileage that you have is connected to the Avatzmis, and the more you grow, your Avatzmis also grows. But that doesn't fit to what we said before. But we have to say something like that. We have to come to the conclusion that somehow the growing, the having Seichel and Midas, is growing of the Avatzmis, because the Eibishter made you to grow. But the Eibishter wants you to grow and become lower. Elamai, you have a way not to become lower. But that's the one has to be, I have to grow. So how is it that this Avatzmis you had could grow when you have the milas? Well, we said before, the Avatzmis covers up, or at least it doesn't cover up, but it does make you grow. We have to find out how that works. The Birem, so the explanation is like this. The Aveda von Iden Beseichel Lemides is nicht chas v'sholem ahepech von seinem Bittel zum Eibishten. When the Yid serves Hashem with the Seichel and with the Midas, with all his attributes, he serves Hashem, is not chas v'sholem, the opposite of his Bittel to the Eibishten. Till now it seemed so. We thought that if you have katnas, which is Bittel, then you still have Avatzmis. But if you grow in your seichel, it covers it up. It's the opposite of the avatzmis. It's not chas v'sholom. No, verkehrt. The opposite. Das ist atitzo and a hemshch davon. It's possible to be, not only possible, the Eibishter wants is that growing in seichel and midas should be a continuation of the avatzmis and the growth of the avatzmis, which so far is not explained. Das Gufa was man darf horben as ein seichel soll verstehen chachmasi isbarach. The fact that the Eibishter wants, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to work hard that my seichel should understand Eibishter's chochmah, which is the Torah. Und as seine Mide soll haben achayus und Geschmack in Torah mitzvah. Now, a person has a Mide of having Geschmack and enjoying. You have to enjoy Torah mitzvahs. He says, why does the Eibishter want that? Weil das is the Rotzen Elyon, and that is bottle Rotzen Elyon in alles. This is what the Eibishter wants. In other words, you could have seichel, understanding Torah, and have chayas and geschmack and mitzvahs, everything. That's your thing, because I enjoy it, and my seichel understands. But it could be another way, and that's the other way it should be. The reason why you understand Torah is because the Eibishter wants you to understand. Why you have a geschmack and mitzvah, you have a midday in mitzvahs? Because the Eibishter wants you. And since you're bottle to the Eibishter, so you should be bottle in everything. Bottle to the Eibishter doesn't mean I'm given over generally. Every part of me should be bottle, in Alam. What does it mean? My seichel should be bottled to the Eibishter. How's my seichel seems to be the opposite of bittul? Seichel means I understand. Bittul means that I'm nothing. I'm nullified. The pshat is if I have this seichel because the Eibishter wants me to, then the seichel, which is me, is really not me. It's part of the rotzen of the Eibishter. And the midas I have is part of the rotzen of the Eibishter. Just like we find, it says that concerning the difference between mitzvahs, we have it like this: mishpotim, midas, and chukim. Mishpotim are the mitzvahs that we would understand, Eidos mitzvahs that if the Torah wouldn't give us, we wouldn't do it. But after the Torah gave us, we have seichel. We understand why. Chuki and mitzvahs don't understand. But that's doch a chalukah shel Torah. In Torah, there's these divisions. So when it says in Chassidus concerning these three types of mitzvahs, as I feel in Tim Tzalemer as eine machuluk nitnar b'taimei and arei beif nakim shalem. So normally we learn the difference is by the reason. Does it have a reason? Does it not have a reason? Do you understand it? I don't understand it. But it's more than that. You could say that there is even a difference not in the reason of the mitzvahs, but how to perform the mitzvahs. Eidos are from Mekayim and als mitzvahs are made of gewiss inyonim. When you do eidos, mitzvahs are called like Shabbos and Pesach, you have to do it for the purpose that it should be an eidos, a testimony on certain things. Mishpotim you have to do because the seichel tells you. So you have to do it because my seichel tells me to do it. So even that is das Gufe, was mitzvah sichles werden getan. Even that we have to do the mitzvahs because of the reason. Darf das sein mit Kabbalah Seil. That itself has to be because I accept Hashem, the yoke of Hashem. Das heißt, it means like this. Der Farbe is der Rebischter hat Geise gewinnt, als Kiem von die Mitzvahs sein echt Zalatam. Why do we do mitzvahs because of the reason? Because we know the Rebischter said, do it because of a reason. So the pale, there's a reason there. But that itself is the Rebischter. Reason is my Meile. Depends how. If I do it because it's the reason I do for myself because I understand, it's like a one thing. That's my Meile. But if I have that Meile because I know that the Eibishter wants, but that's the Eibishter. It comes out that Meiles Ruchnius from Ayidin Besichle Medesov comes out that the Meiles that we were talking about before by Ayid, which is Seichel and his Midas, verdecken nicht und machen nicht schwach as ein Katnas a bit of Kabbalah Seil. It doesn't weaken its Kabbalah. Before we said, really, the Seichel and Midas, these things weaken the Kabbalah Seil. So they weaken the Ava Atzmis. Really, it doesn't have to be that way. Really, if you do it the right way, it doesn't weaken. The opposite. If a Yid utilizes his seichel and his midas when he serves Hashem with his seichel and midas, but he does it because that's what the Eibishter said, weiß der mit as ein Kabbalah Seil is gewachsen. So his Kabbalah Seil grew. It makes not only, it's no contradiction to Kabbalah Seil because he does that also because Hashem says. That shows that his Kabbalah Seil, which is his essential connection to Hashem, also grew. Sie ist nicht geblieben, kein Inje, was ist abgetilt von seinem Bittel. Till then, till you had Seichel, and you just have your Bittel to the Eibishter. So that means you are bottled to the Eibishter. But it doesn't prove that every part of me is bottled to the Eibishter. Because I still have Seichel, which is not part of it. I didn't use the Seichel. But when I use my Seichel to serve Hashem, because the Eibishter said, that means that my Bittel is so strong that it penetrated even into my Seichel and Midas. Nor es hat ihm durchgenommen in ganzen Metalles and Kriches. It penetrated completely. So that shows a growth in the Kabbalah Seil, a growth in the Atzmasdike connection to the Eibishter. That the connection to the Eibishter, the essential connection, is even in things which seem to be separate, which is Seichel and Midas. The mail is nicht nur bei seiner Meile, seine nicht Meilem of the Rav Atzmis. So it's not only that the Meiles that you have, special qualities, don't cover up on this essential love of Hashem. The love of Yid to Hashem, the from Hashem to Yid, this makes bigger, this makes the Ava Atzmis grow, that the revelation of the Ava, essential Ava grows. As is durchnehmen, the mentioning ganzen that it penetrates and it takes around the person completely. Every aspect of the person, Seichel and Midas, are also part of that Ava, of that Etzem connection. So we said before, it seems like the Milas is a chasodin. Elamai, you could say it doesn't always ruin the Ava Atzmis. Now we have a nupshat that not only doesn't ruin, it helps the Ava Atzmis. The Ava Atzmis grows if you do the Seichel and Midas and your Milas based on the Kabbalah Seil. Then the Rebbe said, the Nekuda Analas, the Aveda from Nayidin B'Seichel and Midas, darf sein at Titzor and Hemshech from Kabbalah Seil. This is what we said before, that the way a Yid serves Hashem has to be that when you serve Hashem with your Seichel and with your Midas, it has to be a result and the continuation to the Kabbalah Seil, to the Atzmasdike connection to the Eibishter. Izeich Marum is in dem, was the Siyum von der Reste Mishnah, die Sichte von Shas, die Sichte Broches, is wegen der Meilas von Talmud Chochem. We see the beginning of Shas, the beginning of all Gemaras, of all Mishnayos. That's Masechta Broches. So obviously that shows the beginning. The beginning of Shas means the beginning of your approach to learning. What's it talk about? The end of the Masechta talks about the milas of Talmidei Chachomim, learning Torah. It says there, Talmid Chachomim ein lemanucha, Talmid Chachomim never have a rest. Yilchum achayil ochoyil, they go from strength to strength. Then it says Talmid Chachomim mard misholem beilam, Talmid Chachomim at peace to the world. Shnema, like it says, b'chol b'nayich l'mudei Hashem. It says all your children are the ones that learn Hashem, and then the posuk continues, v'rav shleim b'noich, and there's a lot of sholem that comes from your children. That's the Mishnah. Not the Mishnah, the siyum of Masechta Brachos. The erste Masechta from Shas weist of Reishis Aveda. As we said before, the first Masechta in Shas shows on the beginning of Ayid's Aveda. But this is Kabbalah Seil, and we all know. It says in Tanya, beginning of Perik Mamalev, Reishis Aveda Vikar V'Shosher, the first beginning of Ayid's Aveda has to be Kabbalah Seil. Yeshteit in the Shenim, and that's what the beginning of Shas should represent, the beginning of Aveda. And the Rishonim write, at the honor from Shas is Masechta Brachos. The beginning of Shas starts with Brachos, the Gemara Brachos. Reish is Chochma Yiras Hashem. The beginning of Chochma is the fact that you have Yiras Hashem. When in der Masechta redt sich wegen Krishma, was ist Yichudah Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this Masechta Brachos talks about Krishma, which is a place where we talk about the unity of Hashem, all of Malchus Shamayim ve'el Teira v'mitzvahs, and it talks about accepting Krishma. It talks about accepting the yoke of the Eibishter and the yoke of Teira and the yoke of mitzvahs. So the beginning talks about things. The beginning of Shas, the whole Masechta talks about Kabbalah Seil, as we said, and the end of it. What is the end? But the Sima Masechta und Haklech Harachim, by the end of the same Masechta, which is supposed to start your Aveda, that's the first Masechta, talks about Kabbalah Seil, talks about what? And the end, it says, when you look at something, Kabbalah Shtar, other things, the end represents the whole thing. So the end, talks about Talmid Chachomim. The beginning talks about Kabbalah Seil, which is the essential connection of Yid to the Eibishter. And then the end of that should be the real Kabbalah Seil. What does it talk about? Certain specific milas you have. Learning Torah, which is Seichel. Und noch mehr, go further. Zeir Meile in them was Ein Lemanucha Yechum Achayil Ochoyil. The Meile is that they should go from strength to strength. But das ist Heipech from Kabbalah Seil, but in them darf nicht sein Kishinui. It's the opposite of Kabbalah Seil. Kabbalah Seil Kabbalah Seil is one thing that doesn't change. Learning, you could change, you go, understand more mitzvahs, you do it more. But here, Kabbalah Seil is one thing. It's not changes. So the beginning, the whole Masechta, which is the beginning of an Aveda, talks about Kabbalah Seil. But that same Masechta, which talks about the beginning, talks at the end, which is the end of the Masechta. In the Kud of the whole Masechta is learning Torah, and that you go higher and higher, which means your Aveda is changing, which is not Kabbalah Seil. So it seems like a contradiction. Is there emes in them? So the answer is that this hints at the siyum, the end of the Masechta, and the end shows on the shleimus. When you finish something, then now you completed it. So the shleimus, the completion of the Masechta, which means the Aveda from Kabbalah Seil. The Masechta is Brachos is Kabbalah Seil. The Masechta represents the Aveda of Kabbalah Seil. The shleimus of the Aveda of Kabbalah Seil is vezinem durch etem seichel adam, is when it penetrates into the seichel. In other words, it finishes off with Torah, which is your seichel. That's the whole idea. Tell you that when can you come to the end of Kabbalah? The shleimus of Kabbalah Seil is when it's into your seichel. Afil ha-seichel b'shleimus, seichel ha-Torah. The real seichel, complete seichel, which is a seichel of Torah. When seine inyonim als a Talmud Chacham, seine achelik from Masechta Brachos Yiras Hashem, if your thing as a Talmud Chacham, which is learning Torah, is part of Masechta Brachos, which means Brachos, we just said before, represents Yiras Hashem, an Uizrik from sein Kabbalah Seil, expression of Kabbalah Seil. That's what it is. We said before that the Tachlis is to have Kabbalah Seil. Kabbalah Seil, but if you have Milas, it covers up. He says that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be part of Kabbalah Seil. And when is your Kabbalah Seil to the highest level? When your Seichel is with Kabbalah Seil. And that's exactly here. The Masechta talks about Kabbalah Seil, and the end, which is the Shleimus of Kabbalah Seil, talks about Torah. The Torah has to be connected to Kabbalah Seil. So then the Milas that you have of learning of your Seichel is not a stira to your Kabbalah Seil, which represents your etzem connection. It's there too. Kabbalah Seil was this connection that we said, if between Kabbalah Seil, which we said before, Kabbalah Seil represents the connection, the atzmistic connection between Yidden and the Eibishter, like children of the Eibishter, the etzem connection. So the connection of that, midimaylas glui seichel midas, that it's connected to your Milas, personal milas that you have, as we said before, because the whole, when this Kabbalah sale, Betachas Hashleim is complete, when it is part of your milas, that your Seichel and Midas is absorbed with Kabbalah sale, is Eichmarum is in the Maimer Shebesima Mesichta Gufa. Besides the Rem, as we said before, the Mesichta together with the end, in the end itself, you have that. What's the end? The end is, it says, all your children learn Torah, all children are learning from Hashem, and your children have a lot of peace. And the Gemara says, Al tikra banoich ela beinoich. You shouldn't read the word Rav Shleim banoich, children, but banoich, don't read banoich ela beinoich, beinoich, building. That means, this goes on Talmidei Chachamim, they build the world, they make shalom in the world, they build the world. So the Rebbe said like this. Their posik sagt, in this posik, it's two things there. First, the posik, part of the posik is Kol B'nayich Lemudei Hashem, which means all your children, the goes takan children, it means children. Lemudei Hashem, all children learn Torah. But their B'nayich mean Boden Kipshuti. This word B'nayich means children. Your children doesn't mean physical children, means the Yidden has children today. But the word children means children. Then the second half of the posik where it says V'laf Shleim B'noich, and your children seemingly have shalom. What's like them banoich? Zog the Gemara, I'll take a banoich al banoich. And this, the Gemara, on the second part of the pasuk, the Gemara says, don't read it banoich, your children, but read it banoich, which means Talmidei Chachamim v'chazayim bein the melim. Talmidei Chachamim build the world. They bring shalom into the world. So on the second one we say, I'll take a banoich al banoich. Now the main thing when the Gemara wants to darshan that Talmidei Chachamim make shalom in the world. Which part of the pasuk is important? The second half. When the pasuk says V'rav Shleim Banoich, there's a lot of peace comes from Banoich, and the Gemara says, don't say Banoich, say Banoich, that it builds the world. Why does the Gemara bring also the first beginning of the pasuk, Chol Banoich, what people learn? So he said the Rebbe said Poshet. The Pasha is the time when the Gemara brings Ascholas Hakoso. The reason the Gemara also brings the beginning of the pasuk, which is Chol Banoich, Lemut Hashem, all your children learn Torah, is not zu beweisen. Simple pshat is just to show, as number one, the posek ret v'eng limud Hashem, which is Talmud Chacham, because the Gemara darshan from this posek Talmidei Chachamim make shalom in the world. What does it speak by Talmidei Chachamim? All it says Rav Shleim Banoich. But since the beginning of the posek talks about learning, it says Chol B'nayich Limud Hashem, so the Gemara brings the beginning. So now we know the posek is talking about Torah, about Talmidei Chachamim. So now we could say the second half of the posek means Talmidei Chachamim build the world, make shalom in the world. That's one thing, and that's first thing. And the second one, the reason we're able to darshan in the second part of the posik, don't read banoich al beinoich. Why? Who says you don't read it? Why should we not say poshik pshute? The second half of the posik, which says Rav Shleim banoich. Why do we? What makes Gemara say don't read banoich, read beinoich? It's only because of the first part of the posik. So this first part of the posik is the reason that we're able to darshan the second part of the posik, Al tik banoich banoich, the far bala steht frier banoich. Since it says banoich before, and then the Rebbe explains in order 26. So if the second part goes also on banoich, on regular children, why does it say V'rav Shleim banoich? It just said already, Kol banoich Lemudei Hashem. Should have said V'rav Shleim mom, their shalom. The fact that the first posik speaks about the limud HaTorah, that make and speak the first part of the posik talks about already mentions banoich. That's how we know that the second part of the posik is not banoich but beinoich. In other words, I'm just going to try to repeat because I don't know if I explained it properly. The poshup shot. Why did we bring the first part? Because the first part of the posik, if not for the first part, how would we know? B'chlal, we're talking about Torah here, Talmidei Chachamim. Because the first part, when it says Rav Shleim banoich, how do you know it's talking about Talmidei Chachamim? So we have the first part that talks about learning Torah. Another thing why we need the first part of the posik. Why is the second part of the posik when we say Rav Shleim banoich, the more changes it and said not banoich but beinoich? Why can't it say it means banoich? Because of the first part. Because the first part already said banoich, so why do we have to repeat it? So this first part is just the gear for the technicality of this drash. Go deeper, could say, the Gemara brings the first part, because the first part where it says, all your children learn Torah of Hashem, this is an explanation of what the Gemara says later, that al tikra b'noich el b'noich. Don't read it b'noich b'noich. How is this explained? So he says like this, As you do the klal in the limit from al tikri elo, we know there's a rule. When the Gemara says about certain words in the psukim, don't read it like this, but read it some other way. So normally people think it means don't read it. We're canceling out the simple meaning of the words, and you have to have a different pshat. He says no. So the klal is ados kumt nit shelo sein dem tikri. It doesn't come to exclude the way it's read, the simple pshat. Das is aisof efem. It adds. In other words, it's not. In our case, it would be there is a binyanein here that eich nochen limud al tikri b'noich al b'noich. Even after the Gemara says, do not read it b'noich, but read it b'noich. Bleibt der pirish b'noich pshutei. The word b'noich still remains. What we're trying to add is that when the pasuk says v'rav shleim b'noich, it's besides being b'noich, it also teaches us b'noich, the building. What does that mean? So the Rebbe said, Navedas ornamentos and Navedas of a Yid means, das was Talmidei Chacham sein b'noich, marben shalom b'elam. This is the Talmidei Chacham, are builders of the world. They bring shalom in the world. Is dafke mezeir limud is via ben. It's only when they learn, feeling like a child. That's a taish b'noich. So the pasuk says, v'raf shleim b'noich. Your children, you have to learn. It talks about learning, but it means children. Was mailas aben is bike by a ben cotton canal. When we say it has to be a mile of a child, obviously it doesn't mean every day is a child. You have to. The mile of a child is when he's small. So the Torah is telling you that when we speak about Talmidei Chacham and they bring shalom in the world, it's only if they are like children. Das heißt, when the limud is mit katnus or bittul, when the learning is with a feeling of smallness, of humility and bittul. But the question is, what's the shaykhs at bittul to limud? We're talking about learning, and the Gemara is trying to tell us al tikra b'noich that the b'noich, which are the Talmidei Chachamim, which build the world, it's only when they are b'noich, when they're like children. What does engage children feeling like a child have to do with learning? They're opposites. Is that posik magdim? That's why we bring the beginning of the posik. B'chol b'naich lemudei Hashem. All the Yidden are learning Hashem. Meaning, the inyan from lemudei Hashem is nit kan bezunder meile von a Yidden. The fact that Yidden learn Torah is not a separate meile. You could say there's two. There's a Yid is a child of David. Then a Yid learns Torah as a meile. No, that os kommt zusammen mit b'noich. It comes together. The fact that the Yid is a son of David, sein dich b'nei shekadosh baruch hu, being a child of David, which means that etzem von Yidden is ein Zach mit Elokus. A Yid is one with David. What's proud a child with David, especially by a small child that we're talking about. It means that you're one thing with Elokus. Brengt es memelas alle nyonadim zaneis mit Elokus. If you'd have it the proper way, it will make it everything that you have is Elokus. Sein seichel is to sein limudei Hashem of lenatere. His seichel is to be limudei Hashem. Why do you have seichel? Because you're limudei Hashem. It's David. You have avas Hashem. You have yiras Hashem. That means you have all these milas because of Hashem. It's part of the Kabbalah sale. B'meila b'chol b'nayich limudei Hashem. B'meila, it's everybody. All b'nayich limudei Hashem. Eib Nor says b'nayich is limudei Hashem. If you're only b'nayich, if you're only like a child, automatically everything by you will be bought with the David. And the far Eichem is also also when you're learning Torah. But them which state begilo need b'nayich, not the inyan from beinoich, al tikra b'nayich al beinoich. When you learn Torah, then you're not, at that moment, we're not talking about you being a child. We're talking about you building the world. And that's a mile you have. Idos meyuset of b'nayich, as mizaben lakadosh baruch. It's founded on the fact that you are a child of the Eibishter. But the Rikzichu is in Katnes Abitul, which expresses itself in, as we said, Kanal, like I said before, in Katnes Abitul. So here we see how we see the reason why the Gemara brings, according to this chart, Gemara brings the beginning of the Pasuk, because the beginning of the Pasuk, Chol b'nayich l'mudei Hashem, teaches you a pshat. Why are they builders of Elam? You could say the Talmidei Chacham build the world, they make shalom in the world. But that's a milah that they have. But when I tell you, when is that milah? If it all comes from limudei Hashem, that you're b'nayich, the children, the simple children, you're like a child, and it works. Here we see something very strange. Just like we said before, in order to understand the essential love of a Yid is that he's connected to the Eibusher like a child. So we give a moshel from a father and a son that's small, the Gashmias. So why is that the moshel? As we said before, weil die Ava Atzvis von der Eltern zu Kindern nimmt sich von der Ava Atzvis von der Eibusher Navina so to Eden one canal said give us. Like we said before, why tak is it down here that a father's love to a child, small child, is Ava Atzmis? Because by the love of the Eibusher, the father of Eden, And the Yidden is Abbas, and because of that, it comes down here. Azay is a Zeichen, and Prat from Chol B'nayich Mudi Hashem, as B'nayich bringt mit sich the Meile for the Mudi Hashem. Same thing with the other part that we said, that all your children are Mudi Hashem means that the fact that you're a child of the Eibishter, and a small child, comes together with the fact that you learn Torah, because not like we could think that there's two separate inyonim, and it's a Meile that covers up. No, it's part of your being a small child of the Etzem. He said, is when you learn Torah, so that from them minyan vidas is by Eden, but like we said, that's how it's by Eden. That you're like a child, and that means that the Torah you learn is like that. That nishtal shelech zaben kotten kipshute. That's how it comes down to suppose the way it's a child down here. Aber ja kind seine Veran nicht nur die Tchunes von Katnes und Bittel Kanals Gibel, but by a small child, not only do they have this attribute of smallness and being bottle the reich von limud. They have this in you. We're trying to say that by a Yidin Aveda between him and Eibishter. There's the concept of bittul comes together with learning, and the learning is part of the bittul. By a child, we find the same thing. A child has the mile of bittul, but we see by a child another mile in Gashmis that he has a mile of learning. Where do we see a child has a mile of learning? A child always asks questions. Asks and asks again. Halt in eng fragen, was so far was, can't answer what and why. Und Leib bekommt an answer, was befriedigten. If he doesn't get a acceptable answer, fragt lieber noch einmal, und wieder einmal, asks again and again. So he's constantly trying to learn. Und noch mehr, we go further. Meile von Talmid Chacham, was wird herausgebracht in dem ersten Maimer, Shebesimen sich der Broches. Also, when we speak about Talmid Chacham, that's in the first part of that, what we quoted before, Talmid Chacham, Ein la menucha yechol machai la choyle, Talmid Chacham, never resting. They go from strength to strength, which is a mile, not the etzem seemingly, but we said that has to connect to the etzem. But that inyan that the Gemara says, the Talmid Chacham are always moving. If Ram begole by a cotton, not in a cotton, by a small child, you always see it. We see physically as a kind, in a gesunden Zustand, a child, if he's healthy, ruht nicht, he doesn't rest. Bleibt nicht lange auf selben Ort, doesn't stay for long in the same place. Halt neben bewegen sich. He constantly moves around, sucht etwas tun, he looks what to do. So we see this Meile of Talmid Chacham is by a child. So by a child we see both Meiles. The Meile of Katnes and the Meile of learning, which seems to be a separate Meile. But by the child, it's together with his Katnes. So we have to say the same thing as by a Yid. Noch mehr, die Tchunen sind da bei Kindern, noch viel größer wie bei Erwachsenen. These attributes that we just said, you find much more by child than by an adult. By Kindern is das ein Tief. By children, this comes naturally on their own. By Erwachsenen, but an adult it's not like that. So you could give the deeper reason. Since we said because you feel like a child to the Eibishter, or the merit that makes that your learning is also from Hashem because of the Kabbalah sale. That's why the concept of learning and concept want to learn you find down here also by children. By a kind is the linya from Banayich Mer Begili, and by child the senior of being small as a child is more begilui. So this attribute of learning and constantly learning, very big, you see it. And it's no steer to it being the etzem connection. So we see that etzem connection of a child to his father expresses itself in not having the mile, and at the same time they have the milas also, the mile of learning like an adult. And the farvados is by Yiddish kinder. But the question if that is by children is because that's how it's between the Eibush and the Yidden, so it should be only by Yidden. Why are all these things that we just said by children also by Goyim? So he said, the Farvados by Yiddish Kinder wird noch nicht talschel im Welt, as is the Tepe von jedem Kind. So since it's by Yidden, it turns that in that they made it by everybody in the whole world. And the order he says that it's because there should be Bchire. It doesn't go into the details here. Oh, that's, yeah, in order 30 he says, she should have free choice. That's why it's by everybody. So it's by Goyim also. But it all comes because between Davish and Eden, we have these two things. So and we are like, if we're like small children, there's the Ava Atzmis, including that the Torah, the Mile is included in it. So that's why by children it's also like that. Was the posting. Now we're going back to the beginning of the Sikha. Yes, the Shaila, we know that always that being a child is a bigger mile that shows the Ava Atzmis, the love of is to a child. And that's why David expresses that he loves us like a little child. So how come here in the posting that we quoted, it says that the mile of Eden is that they're great, B'cheir Yisrael, which is godless. So the Rebbe said, now we'll understand what the posting says, B'ni B'cheir Yisrael. Afal be the mile of an Ben is mer begilui by Ben Kotten, even though that the mile of a child, the love of a father to a child is more begil, more revealed by a small child. But the father werden Eden, the common became a suiglich ben kotel, canal sif aleph. And that's why the Eden, when the Eibishter wants to say that he loves us, he compares us to a small child. So why here does he say Bni B'cheri Yisrael with godless? So he says like this: the milas gluyas from Eden was misadem zayin ze b'cheri loshen dula. The revealed milas good qualities that Eden have, which is the reason why they're called b'cheri, which is loshen godless, loshen gedula, loshen greatness. So I need ken besonder inyan for my latzmis albonim shel Hakadosh Baruch Hu. See, this always be a question if the milas are separate. So the milas cover up on the fact that you're Ava Atzmis. Then they're two separate things. In truth, we said before that the whole kavanah is that you should have your own qualities come in the form of katness. So it's not separate. Nor adarabah, the shleimus from the Maila Atzmis from Yidden als Ben Lakadosh Baruch Hu is when das kumt aruis so der Gilu echen seine Maila saglu is kenal Baruch Hu. When is your Ava Atzmis, your Aveda be'etzim connected to the Eibush, Kabbalah sale, which brings the Eibush to have the Ava Atzmis to you, is not when you don't have the Mailas. If you don't have the Mailas, it's Kabbalah sale, fine. But if you have the Mailas, then the Kabbalah sale is stronger. Then the Kabbalah sale, your Etzim connection, penetrates even into your Seichel. If we want to talk just the fact that the Eibishter loves us as an essential thing, that's when we use the moshel of a small child. When we want to say the Eibishter loves us with Ava Atzmis, how do you express it? With a moshel that we're like a small child. Well, by Ben Cotton is the Ava Atzmis begilu mitzad by a small child that Ava Atzmis is there naturally. So we use that. We want to show the Eibishter Be'etzem loves Eden. We bring that moshel. By a Ben Cotton, by a small child, has no special milas, as we said, there's no seichel, no midas. So by him, why does a father love him? Because of Ava Atzmis. Again, by Ben Godel, but when you're talking about a big adult child, the has his own milas revealed. That brings out the Abba of the father based on something, on the reason. He does of the Abba Atzmis. So if you look naturally, this will cover up on the Abba Atzmis. Like we see by a child. The father loves the older son. It's not the same as he loves the young son, the small one, because his milas cover up on the Abba Atzmis. If you work hard, you could accomplish. As the Abba Atzmis bleiben begilui. We said before, let's still work on it and bring that the Ava Atzmis should be begilui. These are the milas gluyas noch verstarken dem gilui Ava Atzmis canal. The milas that you have will, as we said before, could cover up, but that's not the nature. So the nature is only by a child when you don't have the milas. So when you want to just explain this concept that David loves Ava Atzmis, the best way to describe it is by Ben Cotton. That's why you say Nari Yisrael V'Avei, all the psukim that speak about Eden being as a small child. When we want to bring not the connection, we want to bring what level the Eden now. What is their mahus? Dan is their teya b'ni b'cheri. Then we use the term b'ni b'cheri, which is godless. Like we said before, Banayich shows cotton, but we connect it to the limud. But Zok sich aruis, as the Maila Atzmis Na'iden als Bonim, it tells us and expresses that this Maila, etzem connection of Yidden to the Eibishter, nimmt sie durch und das wird die ganze Metzies von Yidden b'chol ha-protim. That, want to say, when is it? If it absorbs, it penetrates into the Mailas. So that's why, when you really want to show the Maila of Yidden, the Mahus of Yidden, you show they're godless. But not godless as a separate entity. Godless together with the katness. So you're b'ni b'cheri. That's why it says it. So when a Torah is not interested in telling you the whole Mahus of a Yid, just telling us the connection. So the best way to tell it is, so Ava Atzmis is by saying that we're like Tanim. But we want to say the Mahus, we say the Mahus of a Yid is that they have godless. And they're still boni, and they're still, the godless itself is part of the Kabbalah sale, part of the Ava Atzmis that Yidden have to the Eibishter, and the Eibishter has for Yidden.